The battlefield was silent now. A silence so heavy it seemed to crush the metal corpses drifting in space. Hours ago, this stretch of the Orion Arm had been a storm of light, fire, and screams carried over. Now only wreckage remained shattered. Holes, drifting debris, and the cold glow of dying reactors. No living thing should have been here. No sane captain would stay after the fight ended. But the lone alien scout ship, hull scarred and sensors flickering, moved through the graveyard with slow, cautious steps. Its crew scanned for survivors, for salvage, for anything worth the risk. That was when they saw it. At first it looked like a shadow, a wall of black, cutting across the starlight. But as the scout drew closer, the shadow grew until it dwarfed every known warship in the galaxy. Its surface caught faint reflections of dying suns, revealing a hole longer than entire cities. Layered with armor thicker than planetary bunkers, the alien captain's throat dried as the scale became clear. This was not a battle cruiser. This was not even a dreadnought. This was something else. There were no known ships in the galaxy of this size. There was no records in the interstellar naval database. There was no rumors in the underground fleets. And yet stamped in stark white letters across its side, almost like a dare, were the words, Earth United Command. The crew exchanged looks. Earth? The humans? That primitive species tucked away in a backwater spiral arm? They were not supposed to have ships beyond standard frigates. And yet here was this. Fortress. The alien captain ordered a full scan, but the results only deepened the unease. The structure was old but new. Its systems quiet but powered. Its surface scarred yet unbroken. There were no visible weapons, but the design screamed war. The captain felt the hairs rise along his arms. This was no derelict. Something was watching them. Without warning, every comm channel lit up at once, not with static, not with a distress call, but with a voice, a human voice, calm, deep, and speaking in perfect Varani, the alien tongue. You are in violation of Terran space? The alien crew froze. The captain's jaw locked. Terran space? This sector had never belonged to humans. The humans had no claim here, no fleet to back it. And yet the voice spoke with the cold certainty of someone who could make that claim real. The captain swallowed, forcing his voice steady. Identify yourself. A pause. Then the reply came, slower this time, like a predator. Deciding whether to strike, we are the line you will not cross. Before the crew could respond, the massive ship shifted. It did not power up with blinding lights or roaring engines. Instead, entire sections of its surface seemed to rearrange plating, folding away, to reveal deep, endless hangar mouths yawning open into blackness. The alien scanners failed to read what was inside, returning only sensor errors. The captain's second officer whispered something in their native language, in old phrase for bad luck, spoken when someone stood too close to the edge of a cliff. Crew debated turning back, but curiosity rooted them in place. This was history unfolding in front of them. The humans had been a footnote in galactic politics for centuries, laughed at for their stubbornness, feared only for their unpredictability in small skirmishes. But now, here was a ship large enough to carry thousands of fighters, hundreds of strike craft, and who knew what else. The alien captain realized something that made his skin crawl. If humans had built this without anyone knowing, it meant they had hidden not only the construction, but the resources, the testing, the crew, training, all of it. For decades. Right under the galaxy's nose, a slow ripple of light ran along the ship's underbelly. It was not the blinding blue of ion drives or the golden flare of plasma weapons. This was darker, colder, like the ship was charging something the galaxy had never seen before. The alien crew's instruments began failing one by one, their screens flickering, their readings spinning into nonsense. The captain gripped the arms of his chair, feeling the air grow heavy. Like the silence before a lightning strike, then the human voice returned, softer now, but somehow sharper. You will leave, or you will see what we built it for, the alien. Captain's instincts screamed to obey. Every survival lesson, every battle-hardened reflex told him to get out before the unknown swallowed them whole. And yet, he stayed. Because something in that voice wasn't just a threat, it was a story. A story the galaxy didn't know yet. A story about how the weakest prey species in the stars had forged a predator so large it could blot out suns. The massive vessel didn't move closer. It didn't have to. Even from kilometers away, the alien crew could feel the weight of the knowledge that behind those silent hull plates lay the power to shatter fleets. This was not just a warship. This was a message carved in steel. Humanity would never be prey again. Somewhere deep inside the alien captain's mind, a question formed, a dangerous one. If the humans could build this, what else were they hiding? The voice fell silent, but the feeling lingered. The alien crew knew they had just stepped into something far bigger than themselves. This was not a chance encounter. This was the beginning of something that would ripple through the galaxy, rewriting every rule of power, every map of territory, every list of species to fear. And as the alien captain finally gave the order to retreat, he realized that the silence had returned. But it was no longer the silence of the dead battlefield. It was the silence of something alive and waiting. The alien scout ship cut its engines and drifted into the shadow of a shattered dreadnought. From here, the massive human ship was partly hidden, but its presence still pressed against the mind like a heavy hand. No one spoke for several seconds, as if even a whisper might draw its attention back. The captain, Coro Veyer, had commanded ships for 30 years, fought in 12 border wars, and had the scars to prove it. Yet his hands now felt slick against the control surfaces. He hated that. Fear was a thing for rookies, not veterans. This was different. The crew looked to him for orders, their eyes full of questions he could not answer. What was the human ship doing here? Why had no intelligence network seen it before? Why had it let them live? The galaxy was vast, but information traveled fast in its upper circles. A supercarrier of this size could not be hidden. Not from the Guild, not from the Trade Senate, not from the Naval Conclave, and yet here it was, sitting in plain sight, the casual authority of a predator on its own hunting ground. His science officer, pale-skinned, Dasari with bright amber eyes, broke the silence first. Sir, the scan data is incomplete. The outer armor is scattering our sensor pulses. It's like the ship's hull is designed to confuse detection. Coro frowned. That's impossible. You can hide a ship from one type of scan, maybe. Two, but not every frequency. The officer shook her head. Sir, it's not just scattering, it's adapting. Every time we change the scan pattern, the readings shift to block it. Coro didn't like that. In war, the most dangerous enemy wasn't the one with the biggest gun, it was the one learning while you fought. He had seen ships with adaptive shield harmonics, but never armor itself changing to match scans. That would require computational power far beyond anything his people possessed. The idea that humans had mastered it unsettled him deeply. Another crew member, the communications chief, leaned forward. Captain, I've replayed the transmission. That voice. There were no digital artifacts. It wasn't synthesized translation. They spoke Varani fluently. That made Coro's spines bristle. The Varani language was notoriously complex for non-native speakers. Even many allied species relied on translation systems. But the human voice had been perfect accent, rhythm. Even subtle tonal shifts used in high command speech. It wasn't just language skill. It was cultural infiltration. Coro thought back to the few encounters he'd had with humans. Small trade ships, rugged, underpowered freighters patched with whatever parts they could find. The humans he'd met had been brash, quick-witted, and dangerously curious. They never seemed to know when to back away from a fight, but they had never had this kind of reach. Something had changed. A quiet alarm pulsed across the console. Not loud, not urgent, but enough to make every heart on the bridge skip a beat. The tactical officer glanced at his screen, then looked at Coro with wide eyes. Sir, the human ship just pinged us. Coro's jaw tightened. Active targeting? No, not weapons. There, it's tracking our jump drive signature. The captain's thoughts raced. In open space, ships could observe each other's movements. But to pinpoint a jump drive's exact frequency, its personal signature, was the first step to locking it down. If the humans could hold their ship in normal space, they could choose when and how the encounter ended. That was a power no scout wanted to see in another species' hands. "Helm," Koro said slowly. "Plot a course away from the wreck field. Keep it slow. No sudden burns." The helm officer hesitated. "Sir, are we retreating?" Koro fixed him with a glare. "We are repositioning." In truth, every instinct told him to get as far from the supercarrier as possible. But the guild would demand a full report. And deep down, Koro's own curiosity nodded him. Every empire feared the unknown, but every captain lived for the chance to see it first. This ship was a secret powerful enough to start wars. If he could learn anything before leaving, it might be worth the risk. The alien vessel edged further. Through the wreckage, twisted hull fragments drifted past, glinting in the faint light of distant suns. The supercarrier remained still, but Koro couldn't shake the feeling it was watching them, not with sensors, but with the kind of attention a predator gave prey. It wasn't ready to eat yet. His mind wandered to the war rumors. Over the years, there had been whispers in shadow markets and backwater ports. Stories of human freighters that fought off pirate squadrons, of colonies defended by ships that shouldn't exist. Always small encounters, always dismissed as exaggerations. Now he wondered if those had been pieces of a much larger puzzle. Quiet, invisible build-up toward something like this. The science officer spoke again. "Captain, I think I found something. There's energy movement inside the human ship. Not weapons, not propulsion. It's layered." She hesitated. "It looks like launch systems. Multiple bays. All sealed right now, but large. Enough to carry hundreds and thousands of smaller craft." Koro felt a cold realization settle over him. A fleet inside a single ship. That was more than just a weapon, it was a strategic nightmare. A single supercarrier could be in one place today, and by tomorrow. Its fighter wings could hit dozens of targets across light years. No defense network could prepare for that. The communications officer's console lit again. "Captain, another message incoming." Same voice. The bridge fell silent. The voice came through, calm and deliberate. "You want to know why we built it?" Koro didn't answer. His own voice felt trapped somewhere between his chest and throat. The human continued. "You've seen the wreckage. You fought our wars. You've traded in our space. You think you understand us?" A pause. "You don't." Koro glanced at his crew, but they were staring at the speakers, transfixed. "We built it," the voice said, "because the galaxy taught us something. Power respects power, and we are tired of bleeding." The message ended. No threat this time. No demand to leave. Just that statement, hanging in the air like a blade yet to fall. Koro knew then that whatever the humans had been before miners, traders, settlers, they had left that behind. This was no longer a species trying to survive in someone else's galaxy. This was a species claiming a place in it, on their own terms, and if the rest of the galaxy didn't understand that yet, they soon would. Decades before the alien scout ship found it, the human supercarrier did not exist. Not even on paper. No public record. Fleet registry. It was a ghost before it was steel. And its name, whispered only in the deepest corners of Terran Command, was Project Colossus. The project began not in triumph, but in blood. 32 years ago, Earth was burning. The skies above the capital cities were black with alien warships. The enemy called themselves the Karth Dominion, a cold, calculated empire that saw humanity as little more than a resource to exploit. They did not bother with diplomacy. They sent fleets. They sent ultimatums written in the language of fire. For months, humanity fought with what little it had. Small defense fleets, station guns in low orbit. A few outdated carriers bought secondhand from distant allies. But every battle was the same. The Karth were faster, stronger, more experienced, and they did not fight for territory. They fought for dominance. It was the Battle of Europa Station that broke humanity's illusion of safety. Millions of civilians lived on that station and its moons. The Karth cut through the defense lines in less than an hour. By the end of the day, there was nothing left but drifting ice and silence. That night, in the underground war rooms beneath Geneva, the surviving leaders of Earth and her colonies sat in a room lit only by a single table display. The room smelled of smoke and tired bodies. These were not politicians anymore. They were survivors. And survivors think differently. It was Admiral Helena Rains who said the words that changed everything. We keep building fleets to match theirs, and we keep losing. We need something they cannot match, something that cannot lose. The room was silent for a long moment. Then someone whispered the thought that would define the next 30 years. A single ship. At first it sounded impossible, a vessel so large and so powerful that it could end battles before they began. It was madness. But madness was exactly what the galaxy expected from humans, and for the first time, it decided to live up to that reputation. The early designs were drawn not in government offices, but in the hidden workshops of asteroid colonies. The first steel was not laid in public shipyards, but in hollowed-out moons far from trade routes. Scientists, engineers, and shipwrights were pulled from every corner of human space, some bribed, some threatened, some simply convinced by the dream. They disappeared from public life. Their families told they had died or vanished in accidents. The Karth watched Earth's rebuilding efforts and laughed. They saw frigates, transports, and orbital stations slowly being restored. They saw nothing unusual. That was the point. In truth, while small fleets patrolled visible space, the real work happened in the shadows. Massive pieces of the ship were built in secret facilities, scattered across human colonies. Hull plates thicker than any warships. Armor were forged in the furnaces of Mercury. Reactor cores were assembled inside abandoned mining stations beyond Neptune. Even the engine's colossal structures taller than skyscrapers were constructed inside artificial nebula clouds hidden. From every scanner, it took years before the first sections of the Supercarrier came together. When they did, they were brought to a single location. Humanity called the Hollow Star Dead, black system with no planets and a dying sun. There, in complete silence, the Colossus began to take shape. At first glance, it looked like madness-like. Building an ocean in the middle of a desert, but the ship's architects knew what they were doing. The Colossus would not just be a warship, it would be a statement. Its frame was built to carry not dozens, but thousands of strike craft. Its internal hangars were so vast that they had their own weather control systems to keep atmospheric conditions stable. It carried weapons no human ship had ever mounted before, plasma lances capable of piercing capital ship armor in a single strike, energy disruptors that could shut down enemy shields, and rail cannons so large that their barrels had to be braced by structural pylons reaching across entire decks. And still, Admiral Rains was not satisfied. A ship is only as strong as its mind, she said. So they gave the Colossus one. Not an AI to control it that was forbidden under Terran law, but a command network that could link every crew member's station in real time, making the ship react like a living thing. Every gunner, pilot, and engineer could share targeting data instantly. Every fighter squadron could launch as one. For 3 decades, Project Colossus remained a myth even among Terran fleets. The few who knew of it called it the Anchor, because one day it would anchor humanity's survival. The final test came in secret. The ship was moved to the edge of the Andara Expanse, a lawless region full of pirate fleets. The pirates never reported back. Their wreckage drifted silently for months, picked apart by scavengers who never found the ship that destroyed them. By the time the Karth Dominion learned of the Colossus, it was too late. Not because they had seen it, but because they had heard whispers. Fleets hesitated to attack Terran colonies. Patrol ships reported strange sensor anomalies in deep space. Convoys arrived without incident through dangerous sectors. Fear had begun to spread, even before the Colossus had fired its first shot in open war. And so, humanity waited. The ship stayed hidden, its crew trained in silence, its weapons untested in full battle. They were not ready to reveal it until the day came when someone crossed the line. That day, the alien scout ship found them. And in that moment, the galaxy was about to learn what 30 years of hidden work, sacrifice, and defiance could build. The alien scout ship did not leave alone. By the time Captain Korover returned to the nearest relay point, the news of the human supercarrier had already reached the local fleet commander. In less than 4 hours, the Varani 12th Assault Squadron arrived at the wreck field of formation of 12 heavy cruisers, 6 destroyers, and 1 battleship at its heart. To the Varani, this was overwhelming force. To the humans, it was a test. The Colossus had not moved since Koro's first encounter. It hung in the void like a slumbering beast, half lit by the cold glint of distant suns. No active weapon ports, no shields visible, no fighters deployed. To the Varani fleet, it looked almost defenseless. Fleet Commander Dren hailed the ship on all channels. There was no reply. He hailed again, this time adding a formal order to stand down and prepare for boarding. Still nothing. This is your last warning, Dren said finally, his voice broadcast across the entire field. By authority of the Varani Conclave, you will surrender this vessel for inspection, or we will open fire. The only answer was silence. Then the Colossus began to change. Its hull shifted like tectonic plates, massive armored panels sliding aside to reveal deep lines of light. These weren't the sharp blue of plasma reactors or the red glow of thermal vents. This was a cold, steady white, running along the supercarrier's flanks in perfect symmetry. Like veins awakening after centuries of sleep, the Varani fleet prepared to fire, targeting systems locked on, weapons charged. But before the first shot was launched, something invisible washed over them at first. It was a faint distortion in the airless void, like heat rippling above desert sand. Then alarms began to scream across every Varani bridge. Shields fluctuated, power levels dropped, navigation sensors glitched. On the battleship Varus Claw, the chief engineer shouted what every captain was soon hearing: "We've lost shield integrity." It had taken the humans less than 10 seconds to strip an entire fleet's first line of defense. Then came the fighters. They didn't pour from the hangars, they erupted. Thousands of them, arrow-shaped and black as the void, launched in a synchronized wave that moved with unnerving precision. Each one accelerated faster than known Varani interceptors could match. The Varani fleet opened fire. Pulse cannons, railguns, missile salvo space lit up with streaks of destruction. But the human fighters weaved between the fire like they had rehearsed it 1,000 times. Each craft carried a single high-yield warhead, and each warhead found its mark. The first Varani cruiser to fall, the Ashrabal, went silent. After a single detonation, punched straight through its midsection. Its reactors failed before its crew could launch escape pods. The second, the Koros Pride, didn't even have time to send a distress call before 2 human fighters disabled its engines and weapons in perfect sequence. On the Colossus, the main batteries finally came online. These were not standard ship-mounted weapons. They were siege cannons the size of city blocks, their barrels glowing faintly as they charged. When they fired, the soundless recoil rippled across the ship's entire frame. The kinetic slugs they unleashed traveled at a fraction of light speed, fast enough that even the Varani battleship couldn't evade in time. One slug tore through its bow. The other crippled its primary reactor. In less than 5 minutes, the battle was decided. But here was the strange thing. The humans didn't finish them. One by one, the Varani ships went dark, their engines offline, their weapons disabled. Life support remained active. Emergency comes, still functioned. It was as if the humans were saying, "We could destroy you, but we choose not to." From the bridge of the Colossus, a single transmission went out not just to the Varani fleet, but to every relay node in the sector. The voice was the same one Koro had heard before. Calm, controlled, unshakable, humanity. We'll not conquer, but we will never be conquered again. This is our line. Cross it, and you will not return. In the stillness that followed, the Varani fleet drifted like broken teeth scattered in the dark. The human fighters returned to their hangars without a word. The Colossus closed its armor plates again, the white lines fading until the ship was once more a silent shadow among wrecks. Koro, aboard his powerless scout ship, could only stare. It wasn't just the weapons, or the precision, or the impossible scale. It was the message behind the victory. Humans weren't trying to win territory. They weren't trying to humiliate. They were simply making a promise one the galaxy would be wise not to test again. The transmission did not stop with the Varani fleet. Somehow, without using any known relay network, the Colossus's message spread. It reached the nearest listening posts in less than a minute. Then it reached the trade hubs. Then the core worlds. Within hours, the words had crossed species borders, carried on military frequencies, smuggler bands and pirate channels alike. Every ship with an antenna heard the same voice. Humanity will not conquer, but we will never be conquered again. This is our line. Cross it, and you will not return. On the mining world of Drell KF-4, cargo crews stopped mid-shift to replay the audio. In the gilded chambers of the Trade Senate, delegates traded worried glances, or translators repeating the words in dozens of tongues. In the Karth Dominion's war halls, admirals leaned over tactical maps, trying to decide if the voice was bluffing. The galaxy was vast, but in that moment felt small, drawn inward by the gravitational pull of a single human ship. For the Varani, the loss was humiliating, but the nature of it was worse. No ships destroyed outright. No mass casualties. Every vessel left intact enough to limp home, carrying the same story. We were beaten, and they let us live. In military circles. That was not mercy, it was dominance. Captain Corover's official report made its way through the conclaves. Channels, within days, contained every scan, every fragment of Cum's data, and his own reluctant testimony. But there were things he did not put into the official record, like the way the human fighters had moved, not like pilots reacting, but like extensions of a single mind, or the way the Colossus had known exactly where each ship's weaknesses lay, as if it had studied them for years. Those details Coro kept to himself. Elsewhere, old stories about humans began resurfacing. Pirate clans remembered sudden disappearances of raiding crews in Terran space. Free traders recalled strange sensor ghosts near the Hollow Star region. And among the mercenary guilds, whispers of the Ghost Carrier grew louder on Earth. The broadcast's impact was immediate. The Terran Assembly, the closest thing to a united government humanity, had met in secure chambers under the city of New Geneva. Admiral Helena Rains sat at the head of the table. Her uniform immaculate despite the sleepless hours she'd endured since authorizing the Colossus's first engagement. "They know now," said one colonial governor, his voice tight. "We've lost the advantage of secrecy." Rains shook her head. Secrecy was never the goal. Read the message again. It's not about hiding. It's about defining the line before someone else crosses it. A governor from Mars leaned forward. "When the Karth test that line, then we remind them," Rain said simply. Beyond Terran space, reactions varied wildly. Some saw the Colossus as a weapon too dangerous to exist, calling for joint operations to dismantle it. Others saw opportunity alliances, mutual defense, treaties, the chance to stand beside a force that could keep hostile empires in check. But the loudest reaction in every back room and council chamber was fear. Because if humans could build one Colossus in secret, how many more could they? Have trade shifted overnight? Shipping lanes that had once skirted Terran space out of caution now passed directly through it, counting on the deterrent effect of the Colossus to keep pirates and raiders away. Private security contracts with human escort ships doubled in value. Even species that distrusted humanity found it convenient to use them as a shield. But not everyone was content to let things change quietly. On the Karth homeworld, the High War Council convened in a blackstone chamber beneath the oceans. 12 warlords sat around a circle of glowing data pools, watching replay after replay of the Colossus disabling the Varani fleet. Some argued that humanity had overstepped its station and needed to be corrected before it grew further. Others cautioned that a direct assault could unify humanity in ways no other war ever had. The Karth leader, tall, silver-scaled figure named Varathal, said nothing for a long time. Finally, she leaned forward and spoke. "We will not test their line. Not yet. Instead, We will watch. And we will learn. So that was the thing about fear. It didn't just stop battles. It also started preparations for the next one, back on the Colossus. The crew felt the shift in the air, not literal air, but the mood. The ship's mess halls buzzed with talk of the broadcast. Some were proud, some uneasy, but all knew they had crossed a threshold. Before they had been a hidden blade. Now they were the visible shield of an entire species. In her private quarters, Admiral Raines reviewed incoming reports from across human space. Smugglers had spotted Karth scouts. In distant systems, merchant fleets were altering routes without orders. And in the far reaches of the Indara expanse, a unknown signal had been detected, short, encrypted, pulsing at irregular intervals. When her aide asked if they should investigate, Raines only said no. Let them wonder if we already know. For the galaxy, the message had been a warning. For humanity, it was something deeper, a declaration of identity. They were no longer the young, scattered species clawing for survival on the edges of star maps. They were a power in their own right. And the Colossus was the heart of that power. Somewhere in the black between stars. Pirate crews listened to the broadcast and plotted new hunting grounds far from Terran space. Merchant captains rerouted through human-protected corridors. And, in war rooms across 100 worlds, military strategists began rewriting their playbooks. The galaxy had changed, and everyone knew it. The only question left was how far humanity was willing to go to keep it that way. Months passed. The galaxy did not forget. The Colossus had fired only once, but its presence became a constant weight in every discussion of war, trade, or politics. In Senate halls, in pirate dens, in the smoky back rooms of mercenary guilds, the name carried both respect and unease. Even those who dismissed humanity as reckless upstarts found themselves speaking more carefully when Terran ambassadors were in the room. Old enemies tested the edges of Terran space, but always in ways that could be denied. Navigation errors, survey missions, unintended border crossings. Unstayed long. The few who lingered never returned, their last transmissions cut off by the same. Calm human voice that had once frozen the Varani fleet. Trade through human space flourished. Shipping companies paid premium rates to route cargo through Terran-protected lanes. Pirate attacks in those corridors dropped by 90%. Some worlds grew rich simply by being close to the new safe routes. Others resented the shift. Watching their own profits bleed away into Terran hands, in the far reaches of the Indara expanse, a new pattern emerged. Unknown signals flickered briefly on deep-range scanners, always gone before they could be triangulated. Some believed they were Karth reconnaissance teams. Others swore they were the Colossus itself, moving unseen. No one could prove either theory. For Captain Coro Vare, the events of that day haunted his sleep. The Varani Conclave treated his survival as a mark of shame. He had been in command when humanity drew its first line in the stars. Yet secretly, his peers sought him out to ask what it had felt like. Not the defeat, but the moment that's strange. Crushing certainty that the Colossus could have ended them and simply chose not to. Coro always gave the same answer. It felt like someone closing a door and leaving it locked. In hidden sectors of space, weapons programs shifted focus. Several species began work on their own Colossus projects, pouring resources into building ships that might match the human supercarrier. But these efforts ran into a problem no one could solve: time. Humanity had spent decades building their first. Catching up meant risking decades more, during which the Colossus would only grow stronger. On Earth, Admiral Helena Raines watched the galaxy's reaction with the patience of a chess player. She knew fear would not last forever. Memories faded. Politicians grew bold. Empires forgot lessons learned at another's expense. Sooner or later, someone would test the line again. Her answer to that inevitability was simple: be ready before they even think about it. The Colossus underwent continuous upgrades. New fighter wings rotated in from training academies. Armor plates were replaced with experimental composites. Deep within its hull, engineers tested weapons that had no official name devices that could turn a fleet battle into a 5-second engagement. The crew called them Stormbreakers. And still, the Colossus remained mostly unseen. It did not patrol the borders like a common warship. It appeared only when needed, always without warning. Sometimes it emerged from a nebula to scatter raiders. Other times, it drifted silently above a Terran colony when unknown ships approached, never firing a shot, just reminding them it was there. To the average citizen, it became a legend. To soldiers, it became a cautionary tale. To governments, it became a factor in every plan. In the Karth Dominion, High Commander Verithel continued to bide her time. She studied every scrap of footage, every account, every rumor. Advisors urged action, but she waited. The Terrans are still young, she told them. Youth breeds confidence. Confidence breeds mistakes. We will strike when they believe themselves untouchable. On Mars, children grew up drawing pictures of the Colossus in school books. Merchants printed its silhouette on crates as a guarantee of safety. Colonists on frontier worlds requested postings near Terran space. Knowing the Supercarrier's shadow kept predators away, it had been 6 months since the Varani defeat when a small freighter captain on the rim of known space reported, seeing something impossible. He claimed a star had gone dark, blotted out for nearly a full minute by a shape so large it made his ship's sensors fail. When the light returned, there was nothing there. No energy spike, no drive signature, just empty space, no official record was made of the sighting. But in the private channels of Terran Command, Admiral Rains read the report with a faint smile. The Colossus was doing what it was meant to do. In the end, no great war followed its first appearance. No empire marched on Terran space. The galaxy had not erupted into chaos, it had grown quiet. Too quiet, some said. But in that quiet, humanity thrived. Trade grew. Colonies expanded. And for the first time in living memory, no Terran world had seen the shadow of an enemy fleet overhead. The balance of power had shifted not because the Colossus had destroyed its enemies, but because it had shown it could. That was all it needed. And somewhere, far from any map, in a region of deep black where stars were only distant whispers of light, the Colossus waited, silent, patient, watching because lines, once drawn, are only as strong as the one willing to defend them, and humanity had drawn theirs in steel.